Good morning, good morning, good morning, YouTube. We've got to go. We're heading towards Kansas City. We just passed that storm, or we just let it pass. I guess that you could say that. That storm has been. We've been under that storm for a while, man. I tell you what, it's been raining the whole time. Like I said, we just got the darn truck cleaned, and we've been driving through rain this whole time. I guess that's okay as long as you're not in the dirt, you know? I gotta figure out. See, these people be like, I get it, you know? There's no place to park sometimes, so. But sometimes, just some drivers ain't got no common sense. Look at this. How am I supposed to leave out of here, man? Ah, come on, don't let. Dang it. Okay. We made it. We made it. We made it without busting our tires. We got a load of plastic pipes on us. I didn't realize how heavy these doggone things are. You know, or some of them, I guess, they could really be heavy. I think we're about 30,000 pounds, or maybe a little bit over 30,000 pounds. Yeah, I think about 34 actually. But the loader, they're not very good at loading. Well, I guess he loaded it, you know, per stop, because this thing is 3 stops, right? So he loaded it based on stops. So I'm not too mad at him on that. But he did put too much weight towards the front of the truck. Well, here we go. We finally got daylight. Man, I've been under this storm for so long now. Wow. That don't even look like an oversize. Anyway, so we're in Illinois, heading towards Missouri. Our first couple drops on this load is going to be Lenexa, Kansas, and then Olathe, Kansas, and then Omaha, Nebraska. I picked this load because Omaha is generally okay area, you know what I mean? Or at least the surrounding areas as well. You know, it's pretty spread out. So hopefully it works out for our benefits that, you know, I think a lot of people are going to be heading down where the storm is, and, you know, hopefully that frees up a lot of the market in that area. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, what's up with that storm? You know, I think I saw a headline where I-26 is just completely destroyed, man. I was like, wow, that's so crazy. Or is it I-26 or is it I-40? I think it's I-40 in, I think it was at the North Carolina, Tennessee line, right? Something like that. Anyway, that's so crazy, man. I don't know how the doggone interstate just completely gets destroyed. So that's gonna be a mess for a while down there. Anyway, so what I want to talk about in this video, right, is basically, you know, it's so hard to compete when majority of your truckers are a hard worker, right? So with that being said, that if they're taking less desirable rates and they're hard worker, it's so hard to compete with them. The only thing that they're headed to is definitely that downhill. You know what I mean? So, that's basically the the gist of this video, right? The whole topic of this video, the whole topic of this discussion, okay? Uh, Let me start off with a story, okay? So in Texas, right, we picked up that forklift at the Ritchie Bros. So it took me probably 20, 30 minutes to get that thing loaded and secured onto the bed, right? That's the one that was going to Oklahoma City, or just west of Oklahoma. Anyway, as I was loading and I'm finishing up, somebody backed in another step deck, exactly just about as similar as mine, right? The only thing is his is aluminum, okay? That was the only difference. But as far as specs and everything else, it's about similar across the board. He had 17 fives on the on his tires. He's using ramps, and then the drop on the neck is the same amount, is the same height. So, long story short, he came out and he old school guy, real old. So I was like, okay. And then I saw him come around and pulled up two trucks. Now the trucks are a 4-axle freaking heavy haul truck, right? I'm talking like oil field heavy haul. The one with a winch in the back, like those big old, probably 20-ton winch, It's like a self-loading type, design, where they have rollers in the back, they hook up to like a container in the oil field, and then they pick it up and then roll it up onto the fifth wheel, So that's how this truck was designed. And then the other truck was another Peterbilt day cab. They're both long hoods, okay? So I'm looking at this, I'm like, there's no way that's gonna fit, right? Because I was thinking the 4-axle was gonna be at least 30 foot or longer, right? Which it turns out after we measured it, it was 32. Anyway, so I saw him starting, he was preparing this, so I was like, I better go help him out, right? And I come over there, I pulled my truck off to the side, and I come over there, and I was like, and I asked him, I was like, hey, you've done this before? He said, plenty of times. He told me he's been in trucking for over 30 years, and he's been an owner-operator for over 16. So he's done it plenty of times. I was like, okay, cool, So I was like, hey, if you want me to, I can guide you in there, you know what I mean? Because more than likely, you got to back it in there, or you have to back it in there. It's not more than likely. You have to back it in. If you're doing 2 trucks on this trailer, you have to back it in, because you got to back in the ass end of the trailer, right, off the truck onto the top deck of the step deck, right? So he was like, okay, yeah, sure, I appreciate that. I was like, okay, cool. So he started backing it in. I was in there guiding him, and then he had the ramps up there, right? He had some kind of a ghetto setup on this. He didn't have his, placeholder for the ramps on the upper deck, So he just strapped them, you know what I mean? Just to keep them in there stable, which is a little bit ghetto, but it works, So he did that, and then he tried to roll them up there, and sure enough, I mean, even with the full locker, right? I don't think the thing is like, it depends on the type of locker that you have, or what kind of gears those are. A lot of times, a lot of these lockers that they, when you lock the wheels in, they're not all spinning at the same time. You know what I mean? They still got that independence, so they're not really full lockers, on the back, For this switch right here, I have the same thing. It's not a full locker, It's still independent, So when it doesn't have pressure, that thing doesn't. It doesn't spin. You know what I mean? So I don't know exactly how it works, as far as like the engineering inside. All I know is that it's not locked in all the way, and then all of them grabbing at the same time. Okay. So. It started spinning, right? We backed it in there, started spinning. I said, man. So he tried again, and then he tried again, still spinning. So he was like, let's put some 4x4x8 on there to raise up that drive, right? But first I told him, why don't you lower the air? And then he made it up a little bit further to lower the air, right? Just release all the air off the freaking thing, and then it made it slightly better, but it wasn't much better. Anyway, so we set the 4x4x8 on the deck to make it a little bit higher, to raise it up a little bit higher, just so he can make it up there. But they kept on slipping, and I told him, you want to secure them? You want to put straps on them? You know what I mean? And then he's like, no, they'll be fine, right? And I was like, okay, cool. And then they just kept on slipping. So he had another idea to where we put the ramps, the other set of ramps, because he had 4 sets of ramps, right, on there, so it raises up the truck. Okay, cool. That's a good idea, you know. But I told him, let's secure them this time, you know. So we secured them, and then it made it up all the way to the top, right? Now, because it's a 3-axle, right, or 3-axle in the back, so it's gonna be a little stiff in there, you know what I mean, suspension wise. So even if you let the air out, you know, because it's not a full locker, it's actually still slipping. Once it made it all the way to the top, it was still slipping. So he wasn't able to back it in all the way to where he can have maybe like a foot overhang, you know. So he's like, my goodness. And we couldn't, so he tried to put in the other truck behind, and sure enough, he had a whole freaking axle sticking out, you know. So he had about 3 foot of space sticking out, you know. That's why I was like, I don't think he's done this before, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, maybe he's done it before on like single axle day cabs or 2 axle day cabs, you know, but not on that kind of setup. I asked him, I knew it wasn't gonna work because you guys remember I tried this before, you know, it didn't work at Richie Bros in Las Vegas. So, but anyway, we was in there for like a couple hours, man. I'd say 2.5 hours. I was in there trying to help him out, you know. I was trying to let the traffic die down anyway, so it didn't really hurt me much, you know what I mean? And then they ended up kicking us out of the Richie Bros because it's already past 5 o'clock. You know, 5 o'clock, they shut down over there. So they kicked us out of there, and then they were trying to kick us out of there, and then he ended up giving up, right? He said, nah, screw it, just gonna leave one, you know. See, the moral of the story is that, you know, like, he's 65 years old, and he was in there nonstop for 2.5 hours, just trying to get it. See, that's what that hard work I'm talking about is, you know. He's a hard worker, but also he doesn't know his worth, you know. So we're still gonna stick to this story. It's gonna be, you gotta stick with me. This is a long, see, like me, I play a lot of poker, right? Therefore, I analyze people and I study people behavior and their actions and everything, right? I do that because of you know, it's just something I'm used to doing a lot on the poker table, right? So I started talking to this guy, right? And he's, you know, I'm piecing together his story. He's been in the trucking for 30 years or whatever. You know, I don't know how long he's been doing open deck, but he told me he's been an owner operator for 16 years, right? So, but when we were outside, I was still in there helping him. So I helped him chain the truck, right? And he had 5/16 chains, okay? 5/16 chains. 5/16 chains is the size of this chain, right? I use only 3/8 because I know I'm gonna haul a lot of equipment, so 3/8. I think 1/2 inch is gonna be overkill, but 3/8, okay? A 3/8 has 6,600 working load limit, okay? Working load limit is what they determine, like, you know, how much it can sustain before it breaks, okay? So when you have guidelines, okay? DOT guidelines. The DOT guidelines is that 50% of the load. So if something is 20,000 pounds, you have to secure 10,000 pounds worth, okay? And at the same time, if you have something that is 10,000 pounds of equipment or some type, 10,000 pounds or over, it has to have 4 points of securement in all four corners, okay? So, it you can't just be like, okay, I'm gonna run chains across it and then run chains across this way, and then that's gonna be good enough. I'm gonna run 4 chains or whatever. That's gonna be good enough. No, yeah, you have to have like those specific 4 points of securement. That's according to the DOT, okay? The rule book, okay? Now, when we were securing it, I was securing the corners, right? I was getting ready to secure the corners. He said, no, you don't gotta do all of that. He said, I'm just gonna run 1 chain across the axle. So he ran it across the axle. So like, the spring tower, right? There's a little spring spacer, right? And where the U-bolts mount into, okay? There's that part. He ran the chain across from the inside of the steers, right? Inside of the steers and out onto the trailer. And then out back in the front of the U-bolts, around the other front of the U-bolts, and back out on the inside of the steers, back onto the trailer. I was like, is that all? Is that all you're gonna put on there? He said, yeah, that'll be fine. I, I don't know if that's gonna be fine. You know what I mean? Like I said, he told me he's been doing it for years. So he's like, I've been doing it for years like that. So, and then I explained to him that what the DOT requirement is when it comes to that specific equipment would be to have a minimum of 4 points of securement. And of course, you got to have a securement of, in a working load limit securement, right? And I can guarantee you the way he secured it, 1 chain in the front, 1 chain in the back, just like that same manner, okay? He told me he's been doing it like that for years, and he's been pulled over and ain't nobody said nothing to him. I said, okay, I mean, I believe him. I got no reason not to believe him, but I know what the book says. You know what I mean? So this is where, like, this is the reason why, we cannot compete. Like, if you're doing it the proper way and trying to, follow the rules or whatever, right? We can't compete, right? Because, I mean, he can do it, like, he's doing it right there. You know what I mean? And if he was able to just even put probably half of that axle on that second truck into the edge of that trailer, he would have grabbed it. But mind you now, can't have overhang on a 53. Most states don't allow that, So at least rear overhang. You can have front overhang, but rear overhang, absolutely not, So, man, and it's just so crazy. Like, I know he's not as profitable as he thinks he is. You know what I mean? He's not doing that great as he thinks he is. See, one thing I see a lot about truckers is that they look at the short term. You know what I mean? That's a freaking bridge right there. That the edge of that bridge, the opening. So, most truckers, they look at the short term, okay? They don't look at long terms, because I don't know why, but majority of people, as far as like, we're looking for the 70 West, okay. As far as that, they look at short terms, and short terms is not where you want to be when it comes to trucking. On the longevity of your equipment, you want to always stick at long-term goals, okay? It doesn't matter if you're going to be in trucking only 6-7 months. You always want to stick at long-term goals, okay? Anyway, so he was telling me another thing was that he did this one load right before this load, okay? He did this one load in Houston, Texas. He said the guy told him that it was a legal load. And then when he showed up, the load was actually over 50,000 pounds, just the load itself. Okay. So he was over, you know, on the load. And he told me he ran it. I was like, did you permit it? He said no. He said no. Anyway, so he, on that trip, he blew 2 tires on the trailer. Blew 2 tires on the trailer. Okay? And then I asked him, did the broker, you know, at least fix those tires for you? Did you ask him to fix those tires for you? He said no, he wouldn't pay. He said he paid him extra for the extra weight, you know. I don't know how much that extra was, but I can guarantee you it's probably not worth the 2 tires. You know what I mean? So, see, this is what I mean. Like, really, we can't compete. You know what I mean? Like, I got nothing against the guy. You know, I got nothing against you, the way you know what I mean? Work hard, grind, and get your money. Get your money however you want it. You know what I mean? But, oh man, 14-1. That was low. I got to remember. Oh, shit. Come on, man. Anyway, so these people just don't know how to drive, man. It's like, really, bro, slow down, man. Like, I can't move over. Anyway, so, you know, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like, you got to think long term in trucking. You know what I mean? You always have to think long term, no matter if you're going to be in it just 2 days. You got to think long term, you know? What I mean by that is that you have to have done, you know, your calculations enough to where every time you operate, it has to be for the long term, not short term, you know? So, anyway, I don't like that. I don't like the it's what I call going 100 miles an hour and get nowhere, you know? And prime example of that was him having to do that load, whatever that thing paid. I know it wasn't worth the trouble of him blowing 2 tires, you know, and running illegally. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Like, that's what I mean. It's like, you know, it's so crazy. And I see that story all the time. You know what I mean? I hear that story all the time. This is one of the main reasons why we have so much regulation, you know, so much guidelines in trucking, because all of these cowboys, right? All of these, you know, if it fits, it ships. If it rolls, if you can roll it at night, roll it at night. You know what I mean? That kind of thing, you know? So they're really the ones who's screwing it up. Like the ELD thing, there was a reason why that came about, right? Because, you know, people are getting in an accident and they're freaking too tired, you know, and they're not logging their crap properly, you know? Yeah, you might be, I've done it before where I wasn't running legally when I was running paper, you know, but I knew my limits, you know what I mean? And I knew that when I was tired, I just pull over, take a nap for a few hours, and then get right back on it, you know? So, but we're going west, right? Is everything west? Okay, yeah. The heck? Anyway, I just wanted to talk about that. I thought that was pretty interesting, and a lot of time, and that happens a lot, you know, in like behind the scene, right? I've seen it all the time, you know. People trying to run, get around scales, you know what I mean? Things like that, you know. It's just, oh man, we really, on those kind of things, you can't really compete, you know what I mean? We can't really compete, you know, because they're doing that just to, you know, make a little bit of extra money, you know what I mean? So there was like another quick story, right? There was one guy I was talking to, he was a reefer. He told me he always hauled 60,000 pounds or more on his spread axle reefer, going across country from from freaking from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast in Chicago, just reefer, 60,000 pounds of reefer. Oh no, it's not permitted, because I asked him. He said no, just run at night. Boy, I tell you, that's probably why the roads are the way they are now. So on that load, he was supposed to make $5,000, right? From Dallas, Texas into Southern California, he was supposed to do 5K on to pick up those two trucks, okay? Which is a decent rate, okay? Now, the reason why that rate was so good like that, because like I said before, the freaking brokers are fishing for somebody to hopefully to do it, okay? To be able to do it. And at $5,000, I don't know how much a broker is making off of there, but it's probably quite a bit, because the owner probably had done his measurement knowing, or the shipper knowing that, he can't, those can't be shipped in one trailer. You know what I mean? So, I mean, or maybe it's like, I can get somebody to do it for $5,000, but I will charge you this much. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then shipper's like, oh, you know what? That's going to save me a lot of money. So if you can find somebody to do it that, yeah, I'll pay you this much. You know what I mean? Those kind of things, right? So anyway, I asked him what was the partial rate after, he spoke to a broker. See, I'm nosy like that, I asked him what was the partial rate on both of those, and he told me that the bigger truck is $2,800. The smaller truck is $2,200, okay? And I was like, ooh. So now, that was a Friday evening, okay? Now, if he was able to negotiate the delivery date, then good on him, because now he can find a partial to put on that truck or on that trailer, so he's not going all the way to California for 2,800. I think that's 1,400 miles, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's 1,400 miles into California, maybe 15. I think it's 14 though. I think it's 14. So 1,400 miles into California from Dallas, Texas. So 2,800. He's getting slightly, actually exactly $2 a mile, right? Is that right? Yeah. So exactly $2 a mile. Now, that's okay on a partial, right? That's if he can find a partial. But the thing is that that's a Friday evening. You think he's gonna find a partial going towards California for a specific, length and weight, So he would have to wait until Monday, right? So he won't be in California until Wednesday. So he won't be able to get unloaded probably until Friday. Now, knowing what I know about California, you think he's going to get a good rate coming out of California? You see what I mean? So it's like, he's not really making that good. You know what I mean? He's not making it out that good as much as he thinks he is. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing good about that route, the way that played out, okay? Or the way that's gonna play out, okay? Also, there was a couple more things that it made me question his decisions. It's that like I said, I got nothing against him. It's just his actions, okay? His actions don't align with what we have to do as a CDL driver / carrier / all of this, right? So I asked him about, what about your weight, man? California, you can't have that spread, because he had spread axle. It's going to be longer than 40 foot on from the kingpin all the way to the back, right? So the 40-foot bridge law. And he was like, man, I can just keep it spread. I go into California all the time with spread, So I mean, I don't know how true that is. I hardly ever see them. People do that. I do see them sometimes, but they could have a 51-foot trailer or those 50-foot trailer. And if you still have a spread on that, I think you're okay if you have your kingpin set up properly. So depending on where your kingpin sits, right? But I know on his 53, there's no way that he's California legal according to the bridge law. So, and another thing, I asked him, right? I was like, the weight on that truck? He said, I'm thinking maybe 27. I was like, no, I don't think that's 27. I think that thing is going to be about 30. So if that's the case, that other Peterbilt was probably going to be at least, 21, I'd say. That Peterbilt, the long hood with 3 axles, the day cab. I think that's probably going to be around 20,000, So if that's, let's just say that heavy haul truck is 30,000. Okay? 30,000. He's already at 50,000. There's no way, like, he had a smaller truck, right? A smaller cab. He told me his empty weight was 32, almost 32. So, with that being said, man, like, he can haul 48, right? 48 max. He was way over 48. I know that for a fact. Just looking at that truck, that heavy haul truck. You see, there was so many things that is going on within his operation that, it made me question his, his experience. Like how he speaks on his experience, right? I mean, yes, he could have definitely been getting away with it for years, right? There's definitely that possibility, but it's very, very small chance that he's been getting away with it for years. So I'm thinking he hasn't really been in trucking that long, But, at 65 years old, you would think he has. But there was one clue that he kind of told me that he has been in it for a long time, is that he was very careful and meticulous the way he backed his trailer in there, the way he backed that truck in there, you know what I mean? So that tells me that he has experience, right? So, I mean, I don't know. There was a lot of conflicting information, but anyway, that's the story, man. I know it's going to be a long story, but it just, it just makes me think that, there's no way me against him on, like, if you put, what I mean, if I run 10 loads and he runs 10 loads, or let's say a shipper has 10 loads, okay? And they divide those 10 loads between the both of us, okay? Both of us, we are both carrying it, right? And then he does his load, you know what I mean? He does it in like freaking, let's say that's a day, right? It takes a day. Let's say he does his in 4 days, you know what I mean? He's gonna take that other load that I have, because he's done it in 4 days. Maybe he was going like 80 miles an hour down the road, you know what I mean? Just in and out fast, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that's happening. I'm just saying, that's just a scenario that I cannot compete, because of the fact that what I do is every time I move, it's calculated. You know what I mean? Yes, I'm going to make mistakes, just like when we hit a high point on our railroad track, right? But we really didn't have a choice on that one, I think I was going to destroy those boxes, or I just going to have to back up 11 miles. There was no way for me. I don't think I can back up 11 miles, Yeah, I probably could have called the sheriff, and sheriff would have come out there, you know what I'm saying? But whatever, Anyway, that's what I mean, though. Like, he's like, him is like, okay, we'll just go with it, see how it goes. You know what I'm saying? We just run it, That's how he runs, So it's, there's a big differences between, his operation and my operation, right? So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that, man. I really don't. I think I think there's a lot of things wrong with his operation, but I'm not here to judge. You know what I mean? I judge my own operation right here. You know, from the front of the truck to the back of that truck, moving from point A to point B safely. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's the end of the video, man. I figure I'm gonna start pumping out content. So we will see you guys in the next video.